Zuko before he was banished, the origins of the Blue Spirit, and the story of the real Last Airbender. Here is everything Avatar didn't show you. Today, we're going to be taking a look at one of the coolest Avatar projects out there called the Book 4 Air Restoration Project. This is an Avatar project I've had my eyes on for a while now, so I figured it's about time I showed it off to you guys. If you want to go check them out for yourselves, the link will be in the description down below, and trust me, it's definitely worth your time. But for now, just give me your ears for the next 10 or so minutes, and let's go over some very fun stories. Zuko's Lost Days is a comic that gives you a lot more insight into Zuko's life and why he ended up the way he did before his redemption arc. Everybody knows Zuko was burned and banished by his father, but do you know the aftermath of the entire situation? Do you know how he coped with his banishment? That's what this comic sets out to answer. It starts off with Zuko on his boat staring off in the distance, and immediately cuts to a flashback that takes place right after his banishment. While Zuko is storming off thinking about everything that Ozai said to him, Iroh is trying to stop him and just give him a moment to think, but he's just so emotional right now he brushes him off. Eventually Zuko makes his way back to his room, but all he can think about is the words those guards were saying. At his lowest point, crying, thinking about the Agni Kai, the last person you'd ever want to see in this situation comes in the room. And you already know how Azula is, so she is just rubbing this whole situation in his face. Down at the docks, Zuko is trying to find people to join him on his mission to find the Avatar, but of course, no one is interested in helping the banished prince. Becoming so desperate, he goes to the one person you'd never expect him to go to for help. And surprisingly, she comes through. Azula convinces Ozai to lend Zuko a ship, but on the condition that he takes Iroh with him. In this version of events, Iroh isn't very well respected because of what happened in Ba Sing Se. He is considered a nuisance to keep around, so Zuko taking Iroh on this adventure is considered a punishment for asking for a favor. They start off their mission of finding the Avatar by searching all of the air temples, kicking things off with the western one. Iroh comes up with a pretty creative idea. He suggests to Zuko that to find the Avatar, it would be wise for him to research and learn about the Avatar's past lives. This would paint a clearer picture of what he's looking for. So they head off to Crescent Island to hopefully learn more about Avatar Roku. When they get there, they meet Shu, who you guys might remember as the fire sage who helped Aang in the Roku episode. Shu takes Zuko to this really cool room full of a bunch of scrolls that keep the history of the past Avatars dating back thousands of years. Here, Zuko learns quite a bit. He gets key information on Avatar Yang Chan, Avatar Kyoshi, but most importantly, he learned how to determine if someone is the Avatar. Zuko's been studying for so long that he gets pretty bored and he's falling asleep, but he quickly gets woken up by the sound of sages training. Being incredibly impressed by their skills, he demands that they teach him how to fight, but the sages don't take well with someone who's banished, acting all high and mighty, demanding things from them. So they get in a brief fight, but before the sage could win, Iroh steps in to save Zuko, but this just makes Zuko's mental state even worse and he runs off. We cut to him finally taking a look at the damage Ozai did to his face during the Agni Kai. We get this extremely sad reveal of him taking off his bandages and him seeing his scar for the first time. This is a key moment for Zuko. Instead of deciding to hide the scar forever, he chooses to wear it proudly. One of my favorite aspects about this prequel comic is how it gives an explanation for how he got the Blue Spirit mask. The crew is taking a pit stop in a Fire Nation colony. While they're here, a giant festival is taking place. Being completely uninterested in the festival, Zuko decides to spend the night meditating in his room. But while he's here, someone with a very familiar mask breaks in and steals some stuff. After a brief fight, the masked man runs off, but Zuko chases him through the festival. Eventually, after talking to some locals, Zuko learns that the man who stole from him is called the Red Spirit, and the Red Spirit is a legend to the people of this town. He's sort of like their Robin Hood. He steals supplies in order to help people in need. Later that night, Zuko is watching a performance at the festival, and he realizes one of the performers is the Red Spirit and confronts him. It turns out they have a lot more in common than what meets the eye, and they decide to go on a supply run together. But as Zuko quickly realizes this isn't a typical supply run. This is a rescue mission, is here for his son. This leaves Zuko feeling very conflicted about the situation. On one hand, he thinks everybody should serve in the Fire Nation military. It's their duty as a Fire Nation citizen. But on the other, I think he realizes that kids shouldn't be stripped of their childhood. Explains how the war is ruining generations of kids, including Zuko. This causes Zuko to have a meltdown and run off. A bit of time passes and Zuko and Iroh set out to go to the Eastern Air Temple. When they get here, they meet someone else you guys may recognize. Guru Patik tries to explain how he was friends with the air nomads, but all Zuko is hearing is that this man must be the Avatar. He's old, he's a nomad, he's at an air temple, sounds like the Avatar to me, so he attacks him, but like always, Iroh is there to make him stop and see reality. They end up having this heartfelt conversation about the situation they're in, and that the Avatar might be gone, but that doesn't matter. This isn't just about the Avatar. This is a journey of self-discovery, and those are never a waste of time. Guru Patik ends up finding them in the woods to tell Zuko that Avatar Yang Chan gave him a vision. In this vision, he details some shadows that were very vague, but the heart of the vision was clear. Zuko and the Avatar were standing side by side before the world. Obviously, at this time in Zuko's life, this isn't what he needs to hear, so he gets incredibly angry, but once again, Iroh is there to calm him down. The comic ends with Zuko's introduction in the original series, with him staring at a beam of light, saying, "Finally." The next comic we're going to be taking a look at is a story of the original Last Airbender. Team Avatar is visiting an Earth Kingdom village when Aang comes across a merchant who has an air nomad pendant. Aang, of course, is wondering where he got this from, and the merchant tells him he got it from someone who came from the mountains. They were either a lost traveler or a descendant of Doma. Aang instantly realizes that this is an air nomad name and gets excited. The man confirms it and tells him the story of Doma the Last Airbender. To properly tell the story of Doma, we first need to learn about Hanzo. Hanzo is a young Fire Nation guard whose duty is to guard the Northern Air Temple. He comes from a prestigious family full of legendary firebenders, so he's eager to prove himself on this mission. But there's one problem. There are no airbenders left. So he's bored and he feels like he's on a pointless job, until this young air nomad girl tries sneaking in. She's easily defeated, but you can tell she's not scared. Hanzo himself is amazed by her strength to not show fear. Never before has he ever seen something like this. Doma showed no anger, no ill intent, no resentment, only defiance. Hanzo clearly feels something for her from this act, so much so that he missed his attack at point blank range. However, hers did not. Doma does end up getting arrested, but she doesn't resist. Hanzo is excited to write a letter to his superiors telling him that he's captured an airbender. This is a really big deal for him because he wants to live up to his family's name, but he realizes if he does this, she'll die, and it causes him to second think himself. They end up having a conversation of why she didn't fight back, and it comes down to a difference in their worldviews. The Fire Nation believes you shouldn't go down without a fight, make your enemies pay until the very last moment, but the air nomads, they don't see a point in a fight. Even if she did manage to kill a few firebenders before she went down, there'd be no point in the end because she would still die and those families would be damaged forever. Hearing this causes Hanzo to not send the letter. He couldn't bring himself to sentence an innocent woman to death. They sit down and have a long conversation together. Doma teaches him the meaning of their tattoos, and we learn that Doma is an airbending master. However, all of her people were killed before she could have her ceremony and get her tattoos. After hearing this, Hanzo burns the letter and opens a door and gives her a hug. He knows that doing this means he'll never accomplish his military dreams or come home a hero, but to him, this was worth it. With his family connections, Hanzo was able to forge a false identity for Doma and bring her back to the Fire Nation where they got married, and he kept her hidden from harm's way in plain sight. Some people speculate that Doma was designed to be sort of like an ancestor to Ty Lee, which would be pretty cool. Again, these are just summaries of the stories. If you want the full thing with voice acting and motion comics, if that's your kind of thing, then the link will be in the description down below. But other than that, I'll see you guys later.